Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of Heartful Insights podcast, where I aim to create unfiltered connections, navigate relationships, and life's beautiful mess. In this episode, we will be discussing the terms breadcrumbing and cooking jarring in dating today. And I'm very excited to introduce my friend Iza to the podcast.
Thank you. By the way, I'm getting over a bad cold, so sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's totally fine. That's so okay. I'm just going to jump straight into the questions. Number one, what do you understand exactly about cookie jarring and breadcrumbing in the context of dating?
Well, we've had some conversations about this before,
Yeah,
and so apparently there's a difference between cookie jarring and breadcrumbing, kind of, even though they're based on the same premises, which is not being able to commit to one person and kind of using them as a top up for attention and validation, which is something we all naturally crave. Of course, we're humans, we're pack animals.
yeah,
But I think in the terms of modern dating, it's kind of become this go-to for a lot of people because I think in modern times, because it's become so normalized to be a commitment phobe, and it's, this whole like catch flights, not feelings type of thing. It's become so normal that we've kind of backtracked from what we used to be, where we were
yeah.
monogamous and we got married, and now we're just like, be as promiscuous as possible, don't settle down, which I'm personally not a fan of.
I feel like it's seen as a cool thing to not even try as hard to pursue someone that you want. And I feel like we've just become so lazy. I don't know. It's very typical in Australian culture, I feel, where we're just so, I don't know, we're just kind of like a go with the flow sort of thing. Or if you even like bother to show like interest or actually make an effort, you get seen as kind of like a weird person.
Yeah, a simp.
Yeah,
The word simp gets thrown around, and people don't even use that word correctly because what's a simp? It's someone who is a simpleton, for unrequited love.
yeah, exactly.
But showing love to your partner who loves you back, that's not being a simp.
Yeah, it's putting in
It's,
the effort.
yeah, so it's become this, people do this whole like breadcrumbing and cookie jarring thing because why, when we have so many options, why should we have to commit? I wouldn't even call it relationship because all it was just stringing me along, which is basically what I consider to be breadcrumbing. And cookie jarring, you're just stringing that person along, right? So we were never official, but it was my first love and I was 15. And he did this to me for like 3 years. It
Oh
was terrible.
God.
I've never loved anyone like I love that person.
Oh God, we all have one. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
always in your teen years because it's like the
Oh,
most
it's the
dramatic.
worst. It's the worst. Like your hormones are all over the place and you feel like love is forever, which it can be, but
Yeah,
like in that moment you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be with him for the rest of my life.
because that's how teenagers think.
Yeah.
I just consider it to be stringing someone along. I guess the definition of breadcrumbing is you're not committing to someone, but you're kind of dropping small breadcrumbs along the way so they don't completely lose interest and disappear. Keeping them warm, basically. Lukewarm, so they don't catch, these vibes that you're giving off that you're not interested and then they dip. Because you don't want that because who's going to stroke your ego? Who's going to validate you
Yeah,
when they
exactly.
leave? So, and cookie jarring, when you use that term, I think that's basically breadcrumbing. It's the same thing. But I think the definition of cookie jarring is kind of more like you're dipping your hand back into the cookie jar whenever you need to pick up. Isn't that what it is? But it's essentially the same thing, in my opinion.
I feel like that's a bit
Yeah,
of
you're
a
just
better
like
term.
anytime, and it's like people who do this so consistently have perfected it so perfectly to the point where you can slightly notice that they're pulling away, and then you start feeling anxious, and this is especially unhealthy for people who have anxious attachment style, which is
Uh-huh.
a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that there is anxious avoidant. I think it's anxious avoidant, which is like the most common one in today's like dating. You
Well,
see it all the
you can
time.
have combinations, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have avoidant, and then I guess you can have anxious avoidant, but there are some people who just have straight up anxious,
Oh
who
yeah.
just anytime someone pulls away, And it stems from like neglect from their parents, in childhood. Anytime someone in a relationship just, it could even just be a perceived pulling away, and they just become very, very anxious and stressed out, and people who are in relationships like that, who are dealing with someone who is cookie jarring or breadcrumbing, it'll always trigger these emotions when that person does pull away, and then they start freaking out, and then they leave these breadcrumbs when they come back to that person, and then this person gets all happy, and it just becomes a cycle.
Yeah, definitely.
I
I
think
was
it's
just actually thinking of
especially
that.
toxic.
It's
Yeah.
it's so toxic. Actually, they actually do combine together because I was just thinking for a moment, like cookie jarring is like dipping your hand into a cookie jar, for example, and just like having a taste. So like having a taste of that person. And like the
Mm-hmm.
breadcrumbs is like, here, I'm just going to sprinkle that there. Like, follow me if you're hungry, basically.
Mm-hmm. Just so you don't run off, because I
Yeah,
need you when I need that cookie.
that's actually, wow.
They're intertwined.
Wow. So, like, why do you think that these behaviors are so prevalent in dating now?
Well, as I touched on earlier, I think it's because I would say because of hookup culture, and
Uh-huh.
because it's so normalized to be casual and to not commit. I think it's developed this commitment phobia in all of us because there's just, I think it's because we think that there are so many options out there. There aren't really. We just think that there are because of these dating apps, and people think they can just swipe and swipe. Like, how people will, often men, will introduce having an open relationship with their woman, not thinking that she's gonna get guys, just because they want to sleep with other women. And then, the whole thing, it ends up turning out that she's sleeping with everyone, including his friends, and he's sitting in the corner crying.
Yeah.
Because men, like, I don't know. I don't think they think they have more options than they do, and they think they're gonna get all this pussy, by opening up the relationship, and they
Yeah.
don't, because they don't have as many options as they think. But it's because of, I guess, social media, and because dating apps, it's giving us this idea that we have all these options when we really don't. And so we're a lot more willing to give up what we currently have for it.
Yeah. Exactly. Like you're so easily replaceable, right? Like you're going in and like you're window shopping, and these apps make you think that you have more options when in reality, no, not really. Like you can like these men like will swipe on every single girl, but like I believe that women are more like selective compared to them. Like in the end, like the guy just wants to, I don't know, get laid.
But also there's this thing, like, they call it the Pareto effect, but I don't think that's entirely, we'll get into that later. But I think the thing that they've used to study the Pareto effect on is commonly mostly dating apps. And what it is that 80% of women will swipe on, I think it's like 20% of men, and then the rest of the men don't get any matches or likes. And they use that as an argument to, like, oh, hypergamy, women will only date a certain type. But you have to also remember that it's a lot more risky for women to swipe on and date, random guys online. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that women aren't going to, like, un um what's it called, like, just swipe, 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 without thinking twice, because there's a certain risk involved, and there's always a risk involved when it comes to dating and sex, because we can get pregnant. We're the smaller, physically weaker sex, we're in more vulnerable positions. So
Definitely. Like we're a little bit more hyper aware because like we know that we can
mhm.
get put in dangerous situations very easily. It's so true.
Yeah, and so these guys will just swipe online, and they're swipe, 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 and then after a while they realize nobody, or like, wow, only three people have gone on a date with me, or three people have messaged me back, whereas women's DMs will be full.
Yeah. That's so crazy. Yeah.
So,
And then they'll go back and they'll realize, like, oh, well, this hasn't actually satisfied me. Here, have some breadcrumbs.
and then they'll go back to the safe, nice girl that wants to
Oh,
be with them. And they complain all, I know you've seen it on the internet. They complain all day long about how nice guys don't get girls, blah blah blah, when they're the ones who are doing this breadcrumbing.
yeah.
They won't date the good girl, the nice girl that wants a relationship. They'll just go back to her for sex whenever, because they don't want to commit.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
they want intimacy and a relationship, but they don't want to commit. No one's
Yeah.
talking about that. They don't talk about all these girls in the friend zone. Oh, God, there's no such thing as a friend zone for women. Yeah, there is. Men put women in the friend zone all the time. It's called the fuck zone,
Yeah,
you know?
totally. Totally. I agree with that. I've had men who have tried to actually put me in those kinds of situations, but luckily for me, like I was able to switch myself off and be like, no, because there's actually a scenario I'll tell you where I realized that this guy was trying to put me in that zone, but I
Mhm.
left very quickly. I went over to his house to watch a movie, and I was
Never
under
do
the.
that.
I know, but nothing happened. But halfway through the movie, I noticed when he crossed his leg that he had a blonde, curly hair hanging off his foot. And it's that situation where it's like, you could not get that past me. And I'm not going crazy. Like, I know what I saw. My hair is brown and straight. Like, you are not going to do
CSI
that.
music in the background.
And I was just like, oh, there's a curly hair on your foot. And I went to go grab it. And he ripped that thing so fast and was like, well, who else's could have been? It would have to be yours.
Well,
And I didn't leave.
yeah.
I didn't leave immediately. But after the movie finished, I was like, oh, I'm just so tired. Like, and in my head, I realized, like, you're playing me. And like,
You're
I
for the
went to
streets.
leave.
That's what you're
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah. And like I went to leave and he was like, maybe we can hang out again sometimes. And I was like, no,
Nope.
no. And I
Nope.
think
Well,
he knew
see,
why, because he started like getting a bit
of
panicky.
course. Of
Yeah.
course. Any situation like that, you just have to get out as soon as possible because, you know, men will leave you in the fuck zone forever if they can.
Yeah.
Forever. And they'll never, ever, ever commit.
And why do you think that that is the case?
Well, I guess you can make a comparison, I guess, like the so here's the thing that a lot of women will do that nobody well, men talk about it because they love hating on women, but women, we need to admit this within and amongst ourselves, is that we keep men around for, and I do this too, but we keep men around for validation and attention. Women will have, even in relationships, they have all these male friends, and I personally don't believe that men and women can really be genuine, truthful friends, especially if there's attraction there from each party.
Mm,
But women will keep a lot of men around for, the attention and the validation that they get. And then they'll
yeah.
just be like, oh, it's just a male best friend. It's like, well, he must have fucked you. And it's like, oh, really? No, he doesn't. But they know fully well that they do.
Yeah.
And we need to kind of more recognize and be honest with ourselves. Like, of course it feels good to have someone around you if you're, straight and you like men, a man that's around you that validates you and compliments you and makes you feel good. Like women need that. And so I guess that is our version. And we won't necessarily sleep with them. If anything, we'll not sleep with them. So we'll cookie jar in for, like, we'll dip our hand back into the jar for compliments, for attention. And some are
Yes.
even get them to buy them things. Some women are like that as well. And I also think I do consider myself a feminist, but I do also believe in kind of the horseshoe theory in this case, where we've pushed so far in one direction, we've kind of just gone back to making ourselves objects. I personally don't think it's empowering to be promiscuous.
Okay.
Some women do, I don't. Or sex work, I don't support really sex work. I mean, I don't have anything against sex workers, but I don't find it to be empowering or liberating. I think it's doing us more harm than good. And when you think about it, hookup culture, who's that benefiting the most?
Yeah.
Men, obviously.
Mm,
They get to skip straight to dessert and
mm,
skip all of this, grafting and working and all the effort. They get to skip it. And, it's hurting good women because why should they have to work for you when they could just get sex easily from someone else, you know,
hmm. Yeah,
leaving
no, I
us
totally get that.
single. So,
I feel like there's this and what's in it? I think there's always going to be that like, inner misogyny against those types of like women who choose to do those careers. and pursue sex work. Um,
Mhm.
even if it's just like the slightest amount, like the fact that they're accessing that, um, there's no chance that you fully respect women at all.
For
But
sure.
but that's just the way that I see it.
So I don't know, like we need to look at also what types of men who are purchasing this, what
Yes.
types they are, you know. No one talks about that. They just talk about, all the whores on OnlyFans. But who's buying, who's paying for this? Who's buying all this? Who is paying $1,000 for a picture? What and why? What types of people are these? Because men will claim that they want one thing, you know, and that
Yeah.
they want to settle down with one thing, and well, my wife's going to be this way, I hate whores, but they don't hate whores.
No, they don't.
They love whores.
I think they like to act like they hate them, but in the end, that's what they're craving. It's kind of like that whole
Yeah.
like Jezebel theory you were telling me, like that men
Yeah,
actually
the
want
Madonna
like a
whore
baddie.
complex.
Yeah, the men actually do want a baddie, and they don't want a woman that can't make decisions for herself or makes the man call the shots or just sits at home all day being neglected by her husband.
And it's a territorial thing as well. Like they don't want their women sleeping around. Of course, we don't want our men sleeping around, but we can't beat them into submission like they can do us.
So do you know what if there's any like common signs or red flags that someone might be getting cookie jarred or bread crumbed? I know we did kind of
Hmm.
talk about it a little bit, and it can be actually very difficult to
Yeah.
identify when you are being cookie jarred or breadcrumb. But do you know what the most common signs are?
The thing I hate about this phenomena is that you can't really tell unless time has passed,
Mm-hmm.
because in the beginning, it just seems like a regular relationship or like talking stage until they pull away. But people can pull away for any reason. It
Mm.
doesn't need to be because they're using you, but you have to kind of identify the pattern over time. And I think that's what makes it a little bit harder to detect,
Mm.
because you have to pick up on a pattern and it takes a while for a pattern to emerge.
Yeah.
And also for some people who aren't very aware, it can take a long time, of noticing that this person is pulling away, being hot and cold, coming back, not wanting to commit. That takes time to pick up on. But
Yeah.
I think that would be the only way to kind of determine it, is over time you're noticing that this person is not wanting to commit. This person is disappearing on you, hot and cold.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. Like I feel if you don't have boundaries or I guess self-respect for yourself, well, it,
Hmm.
it doesn't have to be like, self-respect in like, you don't have respect for yourself if you sleep with this person, but like, self-respect for your value and your emotions. Like if you don't have self-respect, there's a larger chance that it's just going to keep dragging out and you're not going to
Yeah.
realize that you're being cookie jarred or breadcrumb even like years later.
Yeah. And if you let years pass, you've done yourself a major disservice, because women's time is way more valuable than men's due to our small, relatively, it's a pretty small, fertility window that we have, given our lifespan,
Yeah.
between the ages of, I don't know, maybe like 12, 11 to, or 11 or 12 to 35, 40. And after that, we live a pretty long life after, but we can't continue to have children after that. Men can.
Yeah.
So you have to be a lot more discerning with your time.
Mm.
Women have to, at least.
Yeah,
And that's why I think it's
absolutely.
especially cruel to cookie jar women. And men will waste women's stuff. They don't care. They'll waste all of your fertile years. They don't care. So women, we have an obligation to be a lot more discerning with our time and who we choose to entertain, basically. So, you can't decide and you can't control who you attract, but you can control who you decide to entertain and to give your time to. And I think we need to be a lot more discerning on who
Yeah.
we choose to give our time to. So in the begin, like at the very start, pick up on if this person is not calling you back right away. Men know to apply pressure if they want something. I mean, we've
Yeah.
all experienced a man who wants us. They know when to apply pressure. And if he's not, he's just not that into you.
Yeah, they
And
really
that's
do
a
push.
book that yeah, they do. And there's a book called He's Just Not That Into, which I also recommend women read, because before you know it, it's been 5 years and he's still not looking for anything serious, and that never goes away, by the way. Like,
Hmm.
because they'll string you along for 5 years and then they'll meet someone else after you and they'll get married within 6 months. You've heard those
Yeah.
stories.
Basically, we just waste your youth.
Yeah, yeah, they use you as a placeholder. Men will do
Yeah.
that to women a lot. They'll use women as placeholders until they meet the woman that the right one for them,
Yeah.
or right place, right time. It doesn't even necessarily need to be their queen, Princess Charming, or whatever. Just if she's in the right place at the right time and he's like, why not? They'll get married.
How do you think that cookie jarring and breadcrumbing actually affects someone's emotional well-being and self-esteem?
People become addicted to that, because I guess when you do get when the person does come back to you and they are warm and they're so loving, and it feels so good, after being put out in the cold, and
Mm.
all of a sudden you're being pulled into the warmth again, and it feels so much better when you've just been freezing, you know
Yeah.
to be embraced and to be, what it seems like or what it feels like, loved. It's not love, obviously,
Yeah.
but I think that especially people who have anxious attachment styles are victims, easier targets for this type of behavior. But obviously anybody can be, but I think healthy people after a while realize that this is inconsistent, and I think that's the number one way to spot is if this person is inconsistent, because the right person for you is not going to make you feel doubt in any way, and they're not going to be inconsistent, because like I said, a man who knows what he wants applies pressure. So
110%.
yeah, you'll be his wife within 6 months if he wants it,
But it's like,
Here's the thing though,
yeah.
marriage doesn't benefit women anymore, especially in the very developed countries. Like, I'm from Norway,
Mm.
and marriage, it doesn't what does it do for us these days? Nothing. Like, women don't have anything to gain from marriage. Men, on the other hand, there's been studies reporting that married men live longer and they're happier as opposed to married women, because women will what do women get out of a marriage? Nothing we can't do for ourselves.
I
And
was
what do
going to
men
say,
get? Like
yeah, there's not
a
really
maid,
much. Yeah, literally, there's not really
child, a
much.
nanny, a chef, they get all these things, and you know, they get all these resources and servitude
Yeah,
from
that's so funny
women.
because there's some men who would say that the relationship doesn't benefit the man at all and that the woman actually gets everything.
That's BS. I don't know what culture they're from, but I don't know. In Norway, we don't have this like alimony or 50-50, like you get 50% of what he has. We don't have that. We have laws to protect people's, you know, um, economic situation, like their finances. We don't have this thing that Americans have, and I can't really put myself into this American mentality because I don't know what they do, but I just know that for us, we have laws and you can sign papers and petitions and whatever, to protect yourself against that type of thing. It's not like your wife automatically gets half like it is over there. So no, women really don't gain anything from marriage here, whereas men will have a companion that will blow them regularly and take care of his children and cook for him and do his laundry, and you know they gain this helper. I was gonna say
Mm.
servant.
Servant, oh my goodness.
Yeah, this servant. They gain this helper. But
Well, they're
also
being
in
treated like
Norway, men.
servants, so
Yeah, but men are stepping up. I do have to give it to that here, though. Like, men are stepping up a lot more here in the home, and it is genuinely becoming more 50-50 here. Whereas, in some places like the States, the woman is still expected to be both a housewife and a provider, which is hilarious to me.
yeah, housewife, provider, doctor, taxi, basically everything.
Mm-hmm. Like, she's
Yeah.
expected to be everything and do everything. I think feminism has, this is what I said about the whole, we've gone a little bit we push ourselves a little too far because yeah, we are strong, we can do a lot of things, but we can't and shouldn't have to do everything. It exhausts
No.
us, and that's why you have unhappy marriages, and that's why women initiate 80% of all divorces is because we're exhausted and the husbands aren't doing their share.
Yeah, because they're making women do way too much labor than what they should be doing. This reminds me of a song, and I'll link it to you later, but it's a song called Labor by Paris Paloma. And
I
basically,
think I've heard this.
have you heard it? Yeah, and in the music video, like eventually the woman just ends up leaving.
Hmm.
Yeah, because that's just what's going to happen in the end. Like
Yeah.
you're just expecting way too much from her. She's just doing too much labor. Like her eyes are literally like, oh, sorry, that's my alarm going off. Her eyes are literally like, bursting from the capillaries. Like, and then she's just like done, and she's like, I'm out. That's
Yeah.
it.
And men don't want to talk about why women are initiating divorces. They just talk about that we are abandoning our families,
Yeah. No.
which is funny because, a man like that has abandoned his family. He's checked out a long time ago. He's
Yeah.
mentally checked out like 10 years prior. And she's been
Yeah.
dealing with that probably for a long time.
Yeah. And do you think that women take a while to check out in comparison to men when it comes to these relationships?
I think that we women are socialized to be more monogamous.
Hmm.
And so without kind of putting everyone into one boat and saying all women are like this, um, I'm trying to train myself to not have more black and white thinking. Trying to get away from that. But I would say, to generalize, women are socialized to be more monogamous and to be more ride or die, to stick it through more
Yeah.
because, it's a virtue for women to be ride or die. You never hear about a man being this whole like ride or die. It's the woman, the Bonnie to the Clyde.
Yep.
You
The
know,
Bonnie to the
we're
Clyde.
expected we're expected to be more loyal, more, in servitude to the man.
Yeah. Follow
And
the
we're
man and do what he
expected,
wants.
yeah, we're expected to endure. And that's what women have done throughout all of histories, endure. You could tie that word to woman because that's what we've been doing is enduring. And I think that the bar for leaving is higher for women
Mm.
than it is for men because maybe this is a little bit biased for me to say, but I think women want, I think because of our role as mothers and because, carrying children, all of that stuff that we're put through, childbirth and pregnancy, and
Yeah.
we're sold this idea of a happily ever after since childhood, we so deeply want that we will endure a lot more. Whereas I think it's easier for men to check out and leave because what has he been taught since childhood? Just work, earn money, be the best man he can be. Whereas we are taught to be the best woman we can be to our husbands,
Yeah.
you know?
Just listen and serve him, basically.
Yeah, and that's prevalent in all cultures globally, is you're supposed to support your man.
Yeah. And this also like can even like tie into the next question where basically you know, do you think there's a lack of education and guidance for women when it comes to navigating the dating world? And I think we kind of did like touch base on why that's actually the case. But if
100%.
yeah.
I think we've been sold a lie this whole time.
Mm,
I think we've been told that we should want and expect things, and those things have been created by men to, I guess, keep us, um, I guess, submissive.
hmm.
Where we are taught like by men to accept certain behaviors and to, not have higher standards because that would mean that they would have to do better, which why would they want to place that on themselves when they can get away with doing the bare minimum?
Yeah.
Men will always want to do the bare minimum, and that's human nature too, like humans will always want to do the bare minimum for the most reward.
Yeah.
And that is human nature because, save energy
Yeah.
to survive. We want to save all the energy that we can. So that's nature, but I think women have a responsibility collectively to raise our standards,
Yeah.
not accept bare minimum, not accept breadcrumbing and cookie jarring,
Yeah.
because we need to hold men to a higher standard now because women have evolved so much just since the 50s. Our
Mm.
role in society has changed. We've taken on so many additional roles than the traditional housewife. And
Yeah.
how have men changed, collectively since the 50s? Some men are more domestic and more, I guess, equal in that way, but I wouldn't say most are, whereas most women in the West are working and doing all these things, juggling all these different roles and tasks where, the man really hasn't evolved since the 50s.
Mm. It's like a common thing where, like, men will just basically sell this woman a dream.
Hmm.
But as time passes, like they won't even live up to like all the promises that were made. And then it turns into like, contempt. And you end up just
Yeah.
hating your partner.
Yeah, because we're sold, kind of that this happily ever after dream, and that men are supposed to be this way and we're supposed to be that way, and just to endure basically and accept. But we shouldn't,
No.
because men have they're not the same that they used to be. Men have changed in, for the worse, I would say, because hookup culture. So why aren't we being more discerning, with who we are? And I recently posted a video actually on my on my Facebook about how there's this loneliness epidemic amongst men these
Yeah.
days. Men are the loneliest they've ever been,
Yeah.
whereas single women are actually happier. Take accountability. Why not just be a more attractive man? You know, be
have
be a
have
better man.
attractive
Why
have
is that?
attractive qualities, if anything.
Yeah, why is that too much to ask? Like,
Yeah.
women can provide for themselves now and they don't need your paycheck. So that means you need to bring more to the table. And
Mm.
they've not been bringing more to the table, and that's why women are choosing to stay single.
Like what steps, sorry, do you think could be actually taken so we can, better educate and empower women to actually navigate dating and recognizing how to handle these sort of dating behaviors like cookie jarring and breadcrumbing?
We need to stop sleeping with men
Mm-hmm.
that don't want to commit to us. We need to stop. And you have women who'll be like, "Well, I also just want casual, no strings attached sex." That's not true, because you're crying to your girlfriend 2 weeks later about a guy who won't text you back.
Mm.
You're crying about being lonely, crying about feeling used.
Yeah.
Stop putting yourself in those situations. You have the power to, why do you continue? And I know why they continue to do it. It's because of the validation and the attention that we were talking about. You know,
Yeah.
People will engage in these unhealthy behaviors because of the reward, the short-term, reward that it gives them. We're lizard brains, we're
Mm.
addicted to oxytocin and dopamine hits. We're junkies.
And I also feel like we're more emotional. So, like, I guess, like, whether we want to accept it or not, we get emotional attachment to the men that we sleep with.
Mhm.
We can try to
And
bury it as much as we want, but
yeah,
in the end, we're just going to end up crying.
I think most and many women, and I don't know, if I have not looked into this, I don't know if it's biological or if it's the way we're socialized, because you know how we're socialized to be monogamous, whereas men aren't. So I
Mm.
don't know if it's biological. Incels will be like, "Oh, pair bonding, blah blah blah," but the truth is, both genders pair bond. It's not only women. And I don't
Right.
actually believe that men are more easily sleep around and can do that whole thing. I think a lot of men actually, and I've talked to a male friend about this before as well, is that a lot of men actually don't feel good after they have one night stands. Like the next day they'll feel guilt and shame, and that's why they want to kick her out of their apartment right away. It's because they just feel weird about it initially. And I don't
Yeah,
think that that's coming from nowhere. I think that's because we both
because they
don't
don't
feel
want it.
fulfilled.
Yeah. In the end, they realize they don't actually want it.
Yeah.
It's like, what is it? What do
And
they call it? Post-nut clarity.
yeah, exactly. Hit the nail right on the head there. Post-nut clarity is really just feeling guilt and shame because you're engaging in behaviors that aren't good. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing for women. Like we don't feel good about being used.
Mm-mm.
And
No way.
and I don't know if men feel used. I don't think a lot of them feel used after sex because of the way that it's taught to us. Like men do sex to women, whereas women are the receivers. I
Mm.
think in that way that feminism has done good there, and the whole like women can actually enjoy sex as well and not just have it be done to them.
Mm-hmm.
I do appreciate that.
Yeah. Like women's
But
sexuality is more like focused on as well, and like, how can they be pleasured? Like how can they feel good? It's not always about the man.
yeah, and I think that's great. But
Mm.
I just think that women collectively need to stop engaging in these. And it's going to sound puritanical of me to say, but I think we need to stop engaging in these promiscuous behaviors. I think we need to be more discerning who we spend our time with and who we sleep with. And
Mm.
and it's not because of slut shaming, and it's because these men, those they will skip out on good girls to find the next easy person to sleep with.
Mm.
And it creates this culture, this casual sex culture. And in the end, people are not getting into relationships because they can't find a man who wants to settle down with them because these men are so used to casual, no strings attached sex. And then they end up 45, lonely, bald, wondering why they can't find a wife.
Mm.
And
They're
I
wondering
think
where
it
it all
does
went
something
wrong.
to, yeah. And they'll say that about women. Oh, you end up with 27 cats and lonely. And it's like,
Oh,
who's
whatever.
lonely now? Look at the studies. They say they want a wife, but they end up, 45 lonely and bald. And, what happened? They've created this like incapability to be happy with what they have and to be monogamous. And they
Mm.
end up, the rest of their life just searching for sex. And, that's a lonely existence, not having a companion.
Yeah. And it's what they want. It's what they've always wanted. I guess like they just didn't realize it, when they were younger, that that's actually what they wanted to pursue until, it's too late. They engage in these risky like dating behaviors that end up hurting women. They get resented. And, before you know it, they hit their 40s and it's like, oh, damn, I'm lonely.
But you know what? It hurts men as well because
Mm.
they're encouraging each other to engage in these behaviors.
Yeah.
And they're so lonely they can't talk to each other about these things because the whole
Yeah.
toxic masculinity thing. They want companionship, they want emotional intimacy, but they don't know how to express that. And
Hmm.
a lot of them, they can't find it within their friendships. um that's where toxic masculinity comes from.
Like men just don't talk amongst one another about these things. Like, they won't like, cry to like their boy and just be like, hey, like I'm so heartbroken, like I've been used.
Yeah, and then some will. There are some men who are comfortable in their friendships and,
Yeah.
in their emotions to do that. But, they that's why a lot of, if you ask men, a lot of them some of them will have female friends and they'll keep them around for that reason. So
Yeah.
they can have someone to talk to,
Yeah, that emotional
because
support.
hmm but, if they would just stop using women and find a partner, they could have that with her. But they don't see women as being that for them.
They'll just be like, why me? Like, why am I in this like situation? It's like because you've you've used like literal tactics and behaviors to drive these women away that they don't want to be around you because you don't make them feel good.
Yeah. And they, sometimes they will come across a really good woman. Like I saw this video, and I think you might have seen it too, where this guy is interviewing this girl, these two English people, right? And then he's like, why, he's acknowledging that she's a good woman, yes. And he's like, yeah, but you're gonna make me wait for sex. Why would I want to stay, loyal and pursue you if you're not gonna sleep with me right away? And it's like, there is this double standard that men have. Like they want their woman to be virtuous and sexually selective, but at the same time, they won't stick around if she doesn't put out right away. Don't take men for their word, like, because they'll say anything to just continue having access to you. That's something we also don't talk about, is like the lying that goes on. Is
Yeah.
that they'll say anything to like not lose access to you. They'll make up any lie, any excuse to just keep you around for the cookie jarring.
Yeah.
But it's your responsibility as an adult, as a woman, to be more selective and to kind of call this out. And you know what? Personally, I don't even encourage calling it out or saying anything. Just leave, keep it elegant, keep it classy, just leave. You have to be a good person in return, right? You can't be this fuck girl, as they would say, and expect, the chivalrous treatment. So anything that I've been saying in this whole podcast has been coming from a stance of, if you're a good girl who has good values and who's looking for something serious and monogamous and you're loyal,
Hmm.
you have to protect yourself, because people will use you and they'll drain you, they'll bleed you dry, basically. And especially
Yeah.
men will bleed you dry of all of your resources if they can,
Yeah. That's why you need to
because they
have
don't
certain
have to commit.
boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you notice inconsistency, leave. Excuse yourself quietly, move on to someone else. And also, I do encourage dating multiple people at once. I'm not saying having sex with them all at once. I'm saying have a roster, have
Mm.
backup, because the reason why I say that is because women will fall prey. Like men will do this naturally. They'll have a roster naturally. But women, we have a tendency, because we're socialized to be monogamous, to
Hmm.
fall into this like one person. And I've noticed this with myself as well. You have one person and they're your central focus. So you put everything into this person and you see no one else. That's
Yeah.
not good. We need to decenter men and kind of treat them as they treat us.
Yeah.
You're allowed to have multiple people that you're entertaining at once. You don't need to commit. And women will do this all the time. They'll just,
So you'd say like having like several eggs in the basket.
yeah, because we
Okay.
have a tendency to put all of our eggs in one basket, and
Yeah,
that's not
that's
good,
right.
because when that person walks out, we're devastated, and we'll put up and endure with so much more than we should, because we want a return on our investment into that person. Keep your options open. Don't commit to that person unless they've invested and committed and dedicated themselves to you,
Mm.
until they've shown and proven themselves worthy.
Yeah. And like the opposite to that, like for example, like when I was talking about like, like strategies and practices to actually protect yourself from like, falling victim, and how to actually recognize like
Mm-hmm.
the first signs of cookie jarring and breadcrumbing, like before they actually start doing it to you. Would you say that it could be
Mm-hmm.
like a sort of inconsistency, like, leaving you on red all day, or like making excuses to not see you, not messaging you back?
Yeah, 100%. And, you have to kind of check the temperature and the personality of who you're talking to. Some people naturally go all day without checking their messages, they do that to everyone.
Hmm.
But the key here is consistency. So if you're dealing with someone who normally responds to you frequently and who's on their phone all the time, and all of a sudden they aren't, all of a sudden it's 3, 4 hours go by and they've not responded to you, that's something to note.
Hmm. Yeah, something
So
to
you need
kind
to
of just keep
see,
in the back of your head.
yeah. We need to rely on our intuition a lot more than we do as women, because we do have strong intuition. And if we
Oh
can
yeah.
tell that something is off, it's usually off.
Yeah.
And let me just put this in here.
Mm.
Um, if you feel that a man is pulling away from you, if you feel he's becoming more cold, growing more distant, there's always another woman in the picture. Always. Always, always, always,
Aha.
always, always. A man will not pull away from, because especially in like a young man today who has, has this like sleep around mentality. Like they have a roster, like I said earlier, they have multiple women that they talk to. This meme that like, oh, you're the only girl I talk to. It's a meme for a reason because it's, something that all guys will say. You're the only girl I talk to. It's always untrue unless they've committed to you, obviously. But they need, just like we do, this validation and attention, and they want girls to talk to.
Mm.
And also because they're socialized that, because women are the prize, the more women that they have, the more status he gets, right? So they want a roster. They want to have these women, on call and talk to women. And a lot of men can't just not talk to women. They can't go a, a long time without having some woman to give them this validation. So if you are that one for him that's giving him all this attention and validation, and you notice he's pulling away, 100% there's another girl in the picture.
Mm.
Always.
I think it takes a
And I
man
would,
with a lot of discipline to not do those things.
yeah. And I'm not saying that there aren't, because there are a lot of women also who don't have, a guy that they talk to.
Yeah.
But I would say the majority, and I've experienced this as well. When a guy has pulled away from me, I've always found out later that there's been another girl in the picture somewhere, taking their attention away from me. So just be wary of that. Hmm.
Yeah. And I'm now that you're mentioning this, Issa, like I'm looking back at all these like scenarios and I'm just like, why did they like just quietly ghost me? Like, why didn't I
Hmm.
not say anything? Like it was so blatantly obvious that, someone else was taking his attention away. Like, why did I not do
Yeah.
anything?
But here's also a good question. Why do men, why are they more comfortable with breadcrumbing? Why don't they burn that bridge? Because I feel like women, we're easier to burn that bridge and to cut it off and say, sorry, I've met someone, like why don't men do that?
Yeah.
And it's because they want to keep their options open. They want to come back if they can.
Yeah. And it's because men are more prone to being lonely and to having like,
Hmm.
less options. They think, like I said, like you said, sorry, they think they have more options and they don't. So I think the fact that there's more and more lonely men in today's society, it's like if they let that girl go, they're just like, oh, but am I going to regret that? But oh, are we going to be together someday if I just hold on to her? If I just have her within arm's reach, like will she come back to me?
Yeah.
Like
And that's why a
testing the
lot of men
waters.
won't. Yeah, and that's why a lot of men won't outright dump their girlfriends. They'll just act like a shithead for as long as they can and cheat. I'm not saying all men, obviously, but a
Yeah.
lot of men won't dump their girlfriends. They'll just, act like a dick until she eventually gets tired of him and leaves, you
Yeah.
know.
And then they'll have an
I think
excuse
it's
to go and do
also,
what they do.
yeah, but I think it's also to keep their options open so they
Mm.
can keep coming back to her, you know, if need be.
Yeah.
Keep
Wow.
her warm. Yeah. This onions. This is an onion.
Yeah.
There's so
The
many
onions you were
layers.
saying, the layers. Oh my
There's so
goodness.
many layers to things, and it would take an eternity to even discuss a fraction of it.
Yeah. So it's kind of like as soon as you like experience like, the first subtle signs of it, um, basically just leave in like the most classiest way that you possibly can, just leave.
Yeah, and I would also, do what the guys do. You don't have to say anything, keep them at arm's length,
Mm,
just keep them around. Don't say anything. Just, quietly slip away.
yeah. And I find if you do leave in the most classiest way possible, it actually leaves a better impression on you as a person, rather than, just going crazy and, just like having like a meltdown and just like blowing up.
Yeah, I understand the meltdowns because it hurts,
It does hurt and it's so normal.
Mhm.
Like after I had like, these meltdowns and these nervous breakdowns over it, I found that afterwards, like the clarity of that was just so awful. It
Yeah.
just didn't feel good because I was just, I was basically pouring my heart out to someone who already didn't care.
Yeah. And
So
why do we do that? Why do we do
yeah,
that? Is it because we're socialized to be monogamous and to find true love? Or
yeah,
is it this like, anxious attachment style type of behavior? Why do
yeah.
we do that? Why don't we have a roster and why don't we keep our options open?
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, like maybe like one of the reasons, like I feel like the reason why, like, some of us like anxious girls like, behave that way is because we just think that they'll see, how much that we care about them, or that they'll feel,
They don't
bad for
care.
us. And they'll just be like, oh my God, like you're crying.
They do
Oh,
not
you're
care. Yeah, they
sad.
don't care.
Oh, I'm so sorry. No, they don't care. I've accepted the
They
fact
don't
that
give a
they don't
shit.
care. Yeah.
This is why I also don't write paragraphs to them, because they do not give a shit.
Yeah, they don't care. Like, stop the, like, ladies, stop the paragraphs. Honestly, just
Stop
stop.
the paragraphs, stop the crying, stop the meltdowns. If they gave a shit, they wouldn't have done what they did. They do
Exactly.
not give a shit. All they do is feed you lies because they don't want to lose access to you.
Yeah.
They don't actually care. It's like, don't listen to a man's words. Listen
Yeah.
to his actions, and consistency, I guess, is the most important, because a man can fake it for a long time, but over time, that's the scary part, though. We don't have all this time to
No, we
make a
don't.
decision like that. We have to just, if when we pick up on it, is when we have to leave, because, we've only got a certain amount of time until we can't procreate anymore, if that's what you want.
Yeah. We can't have our time wasted. And it's so selfish when men do that. Like, I know how hard it is to actually want to, stop yourself from writing that massive paragraph of how badly they hurt you and how like good you are for them and how
Mhm.
good you were to them. But
He does not care.
he
He
doesn't
does not
care.
see your value.
He
Move
doesn't
on.
care. I have found so much more positives from just walking away in the most polite way possible and just, jarring them, never to be seen
Mhm.
again.
Yeah. And then they'll send you a message 2 years later. Hey, what you been up to? I've been thinking about you lately. How
Yeah.
you been?
Yeah. It happens all the time. Like they will always
Mm-hmm.
come back. Like I saw that you reacted to a post that I made of a guy explaining it, saying like, look, they're gonna come back, like no matter
Mm-hmm.
what, because they were unhappy with what their new supply had given them, basically.
Yeah.
They weren't
Yeah.
satisfied with
Yep.
their new
Mm-hmm.
supply. So they'll come back.
Exactly.
And
And they always do. They always do. A man
yeah,
will always come back to you if you let him.
yeah. And this was coming from a guy who used to do these sort of like tactics. So he was like, I know exactly what I'm talking about when I say this.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And some girls will be like, "Oh, it's because my pussy's so good." And it's not. No, it's not that.
uh,
That's a cope. That's a massive cope. It's
yeah,
because he wants to check to see if you're still stupid.
yeah. Because you're
He wants.
making
He
yourself
wants.
as available like a McDonald's drive-through. Like you think that him
Yeah.
coming back to you is a flex, hun. It ain't.
It's not. No. It just means you have no self-respect. If you're
Yeah,
gonna let this happen,
yeah.
don't respond.
110%. I totally agree with
Don't
that.
even. If you can handle not opening the message, I know that's hard. Don't even open the message.
I know, because you're like, oh, I just want to see what he says about me. Oh, yeah, it's so
Yeah.
hard to just delete it.
But yeah, you opening that message also is giving him validation.
Yeah. Oh my God, she saw it. Even though she didn't reply, she
Yeah.
still saw it. She still saw what I wanted to
He's
say.
and it doesn't help to just say you've moved on. You have to actually engage in behaviors that
Actions,
show that
yes.
you've moved on. Yeah.
Yeah, actions, definitely. How do you think like society and like, individuals, women, men can actually work together to create a healthier dating culture that actually discourages this kind of like negative behavior,
Hmm.
like, cookie jarring, breadcrumbing?
I actually don't know, because I think we've gone so far into the deep end when it comes to hookup culture and um what's it called? Short-term wins, or like getting things without working for them. We expect it, and that's how we're conditioned now. It's how our brains are working now.
Mm,
So I don't know, because there's no reward in working for things anymore, when we can just move on to the next dopamine hit. So I actually don't know. Well, we're gonna have to completely rewire our, brains, and how we're socialized, and
yeah,
how men are socialized,
yeah,
especially.
yeah,
I don't even know how we're gonna go back to.
yeah,
That's what's so like sad and tragic and frustrating, is because I don't really see a way out of this. I think we're gonna have to hit rock bottom until something changes, until we kind of come back to this whole gender war thing. That's going on.
Mm.
How do we move past that?
Yeah.
We have to collectively be vulnerable and be like, yeah, we do need each other. Men need women and women need men.
Yeah. It's like
And we
either
need to
side doesn't want
approach,
to back down.
no,
Yeah.
we need to approach relationships so much more healthily. And we're terrified of being vulnerable because we're terrified of being hurt.
Yeah. I
So
can
where do
relate to
we
that.
go from here? Yeah, I can
Yeah.
too. Where do we go from here? And you know, it's I actually don't have an answer for that. And that's
Yeah.
the saddest thing. I don't think anybody has an answer to that.
Yeah. Because it's something I'm asking so often. And, I never expect to actually, get a clear answer because I don't think that there actually is an answer. Because I feel like it just goes down to, the individual and finding someone that's like a partner that's like-minded that actually wants to work with you to create a
Yeah.
healthier relationship.
You have to find a needle in the haystack,
Yeah, it's
basically.
like finding a needle in a haystack. Like I don't think as like a yeah, as a society, I don't think that is possible. Well, not going to be possible anytime soon. I feel like you might just have to start with, women, not giving men what they want immediately,
Mm-hmm.
holding them accountable, using your women's intuition, because your intuition is what actually protects you and tells you
Yeah.
that something is bad. Um, using your women's intuition and having these boundaries will actually, attract a certain individual, like, that needle in the haystack that will, embrace you and just be like, okay, let's work together and have like a healthy relationship and, have these healthy conversations or, these difficult conversations that would eventually, lead to, I don't know, like a happy future for the both of us.
Yeah. And I think men need to be a lot more honest and vulnerable. And this whole like toxic masculinity thing, that's not something that women created. That's something men created. And they still uphold amongst themselves. They shame each other for their emotions. And we need to get rid of that. Men need to be honest about being lonely and about wanting companionship. And
Yeah.
because they can find that, they do, and many men find that in marriages and relationships. They find companionship that's better than sleeping with 1,000 women, you know?
Yeah.
We need to be more, and women also need to be more discerning, like I said, about who we give our time and attention, and especially who we sleep with, especially because a lot of men just want that, and it's much better to just sift through the trash
Hmm.
when you don't just give it up to everyone. Like if you
Yeah.
tell a man no, a lot of them will just move on because their options, they can just find another girl to sleep with.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them can't, but and they'll, kind of lead you on and cookie jar you and string you along because
Yeah.
they can get sex from you. And like I said, a lot of men don't have a lot of options, but some men have options and, they'll just move on to the next. Also,
Yeah.
they'll also still come back to you for sex if you let them, but we need to stop letting them.
It's
That's the
hard
thing.
because I've always gone for the guy that has options, that was like, conventionally very attractive and that had the
Hmm.
options. Like that was like a major issue for me because like they could just easily just be like, oh, okay, you want to dump me? Fine. And they would just like, move on to the next thing. But there's also like the good
Yeah.
guys, the ones that do say no, or, are the ones that are actually like, okay, I respect you. But I'm not really seeing it happen so often. It's either, they've got a lot of eggs in their basket already, or
Hmm.
they're respectful and they understand.
I think men need to have an incentive to choose you over someone else, and they need to be honest about what type of woman they want. And ladies, don't sleep with them. Don't sleep with men like that.
Mm-mm.
Don't reward that behavior. Don't reward that mentality. You know, we need to do better as women. Your pussy is not the reason why he's staying with you.
Yeah.
He could get that anywhere else. I refuse to believe that someone's pussy is so good that a man will love them forever. I don't think that.
Because
Like
that's not the only thing that's going to keep a guy around.
women need to start not being afraid to walk away
Yeah.
because staying with him is rewarding that behavior.
Mm. So
If you're
yeah.
unhappy with your relationship, work on it or leave,
Hmm.
you know.
But the thing is that like monogamy takes work. You know, the
Yeah,
thing with like people that are polyamorous, look, nothing wrong with being polyamorous, just a little shout out there. But
degenerate.
yeah. Oh, I love it. Um,
Degenerates. No, I personally don't support
I've got a
it.
word for that. You want to know what it is?
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, so with polyamorous people, like they'll say things like, I don't understand. Like how can you just love one person? Like, you know, it's biological. Like we're gonna be supposed to be attracted to like all these different people. Like it's a lot of hard work to actually be polyamorous. No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
No.
Being monogamous takes work.
Yeah.
Being monogamous is hard.
It's
That's
unnatural. That's what they'll say. It's
no,
unnatural to be monogamous. It's not. Like 5% of the animal kingdom is monogamous.
yeah.
And we're part of that 5%.
Yeah, swans are monogamous. Penguins are monogamous. I don't know what else it is, but we're a part of that. Yeah, we're a part of that percentage.
And we
Yeah.
kind of have to be because you have to be monogamous to raise healthy children, functional,
Yes.
healthy children in today's world. You have to be monogamous. You can't be a man who has 12 wives because a girl, especially a girl, but also boys, but especially girls need a strong male father figure to teach her what type of behavior to put up with and, what to expect. Women need that. Girls need that. They
Yeah.
need a strong father figure to, teach them self-respect.
Yeah. And even like, you
And
know,
you need to be
protect
there
them.
for that. Yeah, you need to be present for that. You can't just come home, for 10 minutes while you go to your other families. No, you need to be there. And it takes a village, basically,
It does
to
take a
raise children.
village. It does take a village
And you
and a
need to
village
be
of like good
monogamous.
people. Yeah. That's like I think that's a special thing about monogamy is you need to work hard and you need to have those conversations with your partner even if like they suck and they're going to drain you and even if it's so painful to have you need to do it.
Yeah. You
I
can't
think
just
I
have one
think
foot in and one foot out,
yeah,
You need to be fully present.
you need to be fully present and that's what's hard and that's why people I believe people just don't want to try. So it's like, oh, I guess being polyamorous is easy because I don't want to try. Like that's how I see
Just
it anyway. Like I don't want to
why
try and
not
make
just
things
be
work.
single?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you know,
Why
being
not just be
polyamorous
single?
just tells you like, oh, I'm actually not satisfied by everything that you're giving me. So I'm just going to jump to like the next person and they can satisfy me in the ways that you can't. Like that's insulting almost.
Yeah.
Like I would be
And
insulted if someone suggested
you
that.
know, if a monogamous relationship is too much work, how do you think four of those types of relationships are going to be? You know,
Yeah.
relationships take work. You have to give those four people the same amount of attention, you know, just be single then.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of people, kind of weaponize and kind of take polyamory as a, a as an excuse, I guess, or as a way to be promiscuous or to kind of just gain security and intimacy that a monogamous relationship would otherwise give them,
Hmm.
except they don't want to commit to one person, but they
Yeah.
still want the benefits of a relationship.
Yeah.
So, but they
To
don't
me,
want to
that's
commit.
selfish. To me, that's selfishness.
It is super selfish, and I think polyamorous relationships are inherently selfish
Yeah.
because you want to take as much as you can, but can you spread yourself that thin? No, they can't, So I think they'll also the the
It's
main
actually,
cookie jarers.
yeah, it is actually taking and no giving. Whereas monogamy is actually, you know, you're taking, but you're taking from one person, but you're giving back. You're giving
But
back by
how much
putting the
can you,
effort
yeah,
in. How
and
much
how
can you
much can
really
you give
take?
yourself to four people?
Yeah.
To four people, five people? I don't know how many they have. Three, four, five. How you can't spread yourself that thin, it's impossible. So you'll end up neglecting one partner and then neglecting another and then spending more time. You'll have a favorite, and a lot of them do have favorites.
There is
So that's
favorites.
proof that,
There's
yeah.
totally favorites.
So it's proof that, probably monogamy is what they're naturally more drawn to. They'd rather have, you know, get all of these things from other people,
Hmm.
fill their time, get all the intimacy that if one person's ignoring them or they're at work, they can just message someone else, their second or third girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever,
Yeah.
just constantly filling up emotional tank, their need for intimacy. I don't know. I'm not
Yeah.
personally a fan of polyamory. I think it's
Yeah.
I think it's
I'm personally
degenerate.
not a fan either. I think we've both figured that out in this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
No.
if you're an adult, both consenting, all five consenting, however many you are, just do what, just whatever. That's your choice. But
Yeah. Do like yeah.
I don't have children. Don't raise children in environments like that.
Yeah. I feel like they probably have a warped view on what love um really is.
Yeah. That's not the way forward because a lot of people do crave monogamous intimacy and, we shouldn't be shamed for that.
If that makes you truly happy, do it.
Hmm.
But it's not something that I want. And I guess
No.
that's something that monogamous people always say. They'll be like, "Oh, it's not for me, but it's okay. Do what you want." But it's true. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't affect me that you're polyamorous. Just don't date me.
Hmm.
That's it. Don't date me.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I've never I'm super, super, super monogamous. I've never, ever tried or wanted or been interested in that lifestyle. It's not
Me
for
either.
me. So what does that make me? Clearly people are naturally monogamous.
Hmm.
People like me, they crave and only want one partner, a life partner forever. I've never been a casual person, and I'm not a casual person now. I don't engage in casual relationships, casual sex, anything like that. It's not who I am. A lot of people are like that. So clearly it is natural for many people to be monogamous.
Mm.
So yeah, don't let them shame you into being polyamorous. I have a friend who's not really polyamorous, and she's actually super, super anti-polyamory right now because she was kind of coerced into it, and she's got trauma from that now.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't feel right, don't do it.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
nothing wrong with being monogamous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yay. So thanks for having me.
No, no, thank you for coming on. Like this has been absolutely fantastic. Thanks for watching, everyone. This is Heartful Insights episode 3, and I hope that you've got a lot of insight from Iza and myself. I was very happy to have her on. And until next time, guys, take care.